The crystal chandelier overhead casts fractured light across white tablecloths at Le Ciel, one of Manhattan's most exclusive dining rooms. It is 7:30 on a Thursday evening. Preston Hale sits at table 9, legs spread wide, his ivory suit jacket draped over the chair back. His red wine tie hangs loose. He snaps his fingers at the server approaching with a tray. Lily Nguyen balances 3 plates on her left arm. She is 24 years old and has worked here for 18 months while saving for law school. Her hands are steady. Her expression is polite. She sets the first plate down with practiced care. Preston does not look up from his phone. "Wrong temperature," he says. "I said medium rare. This is medium. Do you not understand English?" Lily's jaw tightens. "Sir, I can have the kitchen adjusted." "I apologize for." "I don't want your apology. I want competence." He pushes the plate toward her with one finger. "Is that too much to ask from someone like you?" The phrase hangs in the air. "Someone like you." Lily's face flushes. She reaches for the plate. 2 tables away, Aaliyah Carter sets down her water glass. She is 32 years old, Chief Operating Officer of Carter Impact Lab, a philanthropic fund that has rebuilt 14 community centers in 3 years. Tonight she wears an emerald silk dress and a thin gold bracelet that catches the light when she moves. She has been watching the exchange. She stands. Her heels make no sound on the carpet as she crosses the space between tables. Preston does not notice her approach until she speaks. "Excuse me," Aaliyah says. Her voice is calm. "I think you owe this woman an apology." Preston looks up. His eyes narrow. "I'm sorry, who are you?" "Someone who was raised to treat service workers with respect." Preston leans back in his chair. A slow smile spreads across his face. "Oh, I see. You're one of those people. Social justice warrior, right? Let me guess you're going to lecture me about privilege?" Aaliyah does not move. "I'm going to suggest you lower your voice and speak to her like a human being. And I'm going to suggest you mind your own business." Preston's voice rises. Other diners turn to look. "This is between me and the help. Unless you want to pay for my meal, shut your mouth and sit down." Lily takes a step back. Her tray trembles slightly. Aaliyah remains still, her hands folded at her waist. "I won't sit down," she says quietly. "And neither will you until you apologize." Preston stands. He is 6 feet tall. He towers over Aaliyah by 4 inches. His face reddens. "You know what your problem is? You think you can walk into any space and demand respect you haven't earned. You think because you put on a nice dress and some jewelry, people will forget what you are." The word "what" slices through the room. Aaliyah's expression does not change. "I know exactly what I am. A woman who will not watch another woman be degraded in silence." Preston's hand moves before anyone can react. The slap echoes like a gunshot. Aaliyah's head snaps to the side. A wine glass on the nearest table tips and shatters on the floor. The sound seems to pull all oxygen from the room. For 3 seconds, no one breathes. Lily drops the tray. Plates crash. A woman at table 12 gasps. The maitre d' freezes halfway across the dining room. Aaliyah straightens slowly. She does not touch her cheek. She does not speak. She simply looks at Preston with an expression so still it could be carved from stone. The front door of Le Ciel opens. Malcolm Carter steps inside. He is 38 years old, founder and CEO of Nova, a financial technology conglomerate valued at $11.3 billion. He wears a charcoal suit, a slate gray tie, and a vintage Patek Philippe watch his grandfather wore during the Selma marches. He has just returned from a board meeting in Midtown. He was supposed to meet Aaliyah here at 7:45. He sees his wife standing in the center of the dining room. He sees the red mark blooming across her left cheek. He sees Preston Hale's hand still raised, fingers spread, as if the air itself has not yet released the violence. Malcolm does not run. He walks. Each step is measured. His face shows nothing. But everyone in the room feels the temperature drop. He reaches Aaliyah and places himself between her and Preston. His voice, when he speaks, is barely above a whisper. "You just touched the only person in this world I would burn everything to protect." Preston blinks. Recognition dawns slowly. He has seen Malcolm Carter's face on magazine covers. He has heard his father mention Nova during board meetings. He has watched interviews where Malcolm discussed disrupting legacy banking systems with the kind of precision that makes old money nervous. Preston starts. Malcolm raises one hand. The gesture is small. It silences Preston completely. "Don't speak," Malcolm says. "Not yet. First, I need you to understand something. I am not angry. Anger is loud. Anger makes mistakes. What I am is very, very clear about what happens next. He turns to the maitre d', who stands frozen near the kitchen door. Call your head of security. Tell them to preserve all surveillance footage from the last 30 minutes. No one touches the server. No one deletes anything. The maitre d' nods and pulls out his phone with shaking hands. Malcolm looks at Lily. Are you all right? Lily nods, her eyes wide. Yes. Thank you. What's your full name? Lily Nguyen. Lily, I need you to write down everything he said to you. Every word. Can you do that? Yes. Malcolm pulls a business card from his jacket. This is my attorney's direct line. Call tonight. Tell them Malcolm sent you. They will make sure you're protected. Do you understand? Lily takes the card with both hands. Yes, sir. Thank you. A woman in a black suit emerges from the kitchen corridor. She is 45 years old, 5'6", with graying hair pulled into a tight bun. Her name is Maria Torres. She served 12 years with the NYPD before moving to private security. She has worked at LaSalle for 7 years and has never seen Malcolm Carter look the way he does now. Mr. Carter, she says. Maria. I need the memory card from every camera in this room sealed and logged. Can you do that personally? Already done, Maria says. She holds up a small evidence bag. Pulled them the moment I heard the commotion. Chain of custody starts now. Malcolm nods once. Thank you. Preston finally finds his voice. This is insane. You're treating me like a criminal. I barely touched her. She was in my face. Malcolm turns back to him. The movement is so smooth it looks choreographed. Here's what you don't understand yet. My wife is the chief operating officer of a $70 million charitable fund. She sits on the board of 3 nonprofits. She has testified before Congress twice. And you just assaulted her in a room full of witnesses because she asked you to be polite to a waitress. Preston's face goes pale. It wasn't I didn't mean. You meant it, Aaliyah says. It is the first time she has spoken since the slap. Her voice is steady. You meant every word you said to Lily. You meant it when you called me one of those people. And you meant it when you decided your embarrassment was worth more than my safety. Preston opens his mouth. No sound comes out. Malcolm continues. Here is what will happen. You will sit down. You will stay seated until the police arrive. If you try to leave, if you make one phone call, if you so much as look at my wife again, I will make it my personal mission to ensure that every business partner, every investor, every country club that has your family's name on a plaque knows exactly what kind of man you are. You're threatening me? Preston's voice cracks. Do you know who my father is? Hale Dominion owns half the real estate in this city. We could buy your little tech company 3 times over. Malcolm smiles. It does not reach his eyes. Your father's company is leveraged at 2.4 to 1. Your family's net worth is mostly tied up in illiquid assets. I know because Nova ran the numbers last year when Hale Dominion tried to acquire one of our payment processing subsidiaries. We turned you down. And now I know why. Preston's hands curl into fists. This isn't over. You're right, Malcolm says. It's not, it's just beginning. He turns to Aaliyah and places one hand gently on her shoulder. Are you okay? She nods. Her eyes are dry. I'm fine. We don't have to stay. I want to stay, she says. I want to see this through. Malcolm looks at Maria. Can you call the precinct? Ask for Detective Daniel Brooks if he's on shift. Tell him Malcolm Carter needs a favor. Maria nods and steps away, already dialing. Preston sinks back into his chair. His hands tremble. He looks around the dining room at the faces staring back at him. Some expressions show shock. Others show disgust. A few show something worse. Recognition. They have seen men like him before. They know how this story ends. Malcolm guides Aaliyah to a chair at an empty table near the window. He sits across from her. Neither of them speaks. They do not need to. They have been married for 8 years. They have built a life around the understanding that power without accountability is just another word for cruelty. Aaliyah touches her cheek lightly. The skin is hot. Tomorrow there will be a bruise. But tonight, in this moment, she feels something else entirely. She feels seen. Not as a victim. Not as a spectacle. But as someone whose dignity is worth defending. Preston watches them from across the room. He does not understand what he is seeing. He does not understand why Malcolm Carter is not shouting. He does not understand why Aaliyah has not cried, or threatened, or demanded money. He only knows that for the first time in his 28 years, someone has looked at him and seen not his last name or his trust fund, but the smallness of his character. The front door opens again. Two uniformed officers enter, followed by a man in a dark coat. He is 41 years old, with a weathered face and careful eyes. Detective Daniel Brooks has worked in Manhattan for 19 years. He has seen every kind of violence the city can produce. But when Maria Torres called and said Malcolm Carter needed him, he came immediately. He owes Malcolm a debt from 5 years ago when Nova's fraud detection software helped break a human trafficking ring. Brooks surveys the room. He sees Aaliyah sitting by the window, composed despite the mark on her face. He sees Preston Hale trying to look bored and failing. He sees Malcolm standing like a pillar in the center of the chaos. Malcolm, Brooks says. Daniel. Thank you for coming. Maria said assault. That true? Malcolm gestures toward Preston. That man struck my wife after she asked him to stop verbally abusing a staff member. Multiple witnesses. Security footage. Victim is willing to file a report. Brooks pulls out a notebook. All right. Let's start with statements. Over the next 40 minutes, Brooks interviews 7 people. Lily recounts Preston's words with a steady voice, though her hands shake when she describes the phrase, someone like you. The maitre d' confirms the timeline. A couple at table 15 provides their account. Maria turns over the sealed evidence bag containing the memory cards. Preston refuses to speak without his lawyer. He sits with his arms crossed, staring at the wall. His phone buzzes repeatedly in his pocket. He does not answer. Brooks approaches Aaliyah last. Mrs. Carter, I need to ask you some questions. Are you comfortable doing that here? Yes, Aaliyah says. Can you describe what happened? Aaliyah recounts the events in chronological order. She does not editorialize. She does not speculate about Preston's motives. She simply states facts. When she finishes, Brooks closes his notebook. Do you want to press charges? Yes. Both criminal and civil? Yes. Brooks nods. I'll file the report tonight. The DA will review it tomorrow. Given the number of witnesses and the video evidence, I expect they'll move forward quickly. Thank you, Detective. Brooks looks at Malcolm. You staying out of this? I'm staying exactly as involved as my wife needs me to be, Malcolm says. No more. No less. Brooks almost smiles. That's probably smart. He walks over to Preston. Mr. Hale, I need you to come with me to the precinct. You're not under arrest at this time, but I need a formal statement. Preston stands. His face is flushed. This is ridiculous. My lawyer will have you all buried in paperwork by morning. That's your right, Brooks says. But the cameras don't lie. And neither do 7 witnesses. Preston glares at Aaliyah as the officers escort him toward the door. She meets his eyes without flinching. He looks away first. When the door closes behind them, the dining room erupts in whispered conversation. Malcolm returns to Aaliyah's side. Let's go home, he says. Aaliyah shakes her head. Not yet. She stands and walks over to Lily, who is leaning against the wall near the kitchen, still holding Malcolm's business card. Aaliyah stops a respectful distance away. Are you okay? Aaliyah asks. Lily looks up, tears streak her face. I don't know. I keep thinking about what would have happened if you hadn't said anything. If you hadn't stood up for me. You didn't need me to stand up for you, Aaliyah says gently. You were already standing. I just made sure you weren't standing alone. Lily wipes her eyes. Why did you do it? You didn't know me. You could have just ignored him. Aaliyah is quiet for a moment. Then she speaks, and her voice carries a weight that comes from years of carrying her own. When I was 9 years old, I watched my mother get humiliated at a grocery store checkout. The cashier accused her of stealing because her card was declined. It wasn't declined. The machine was broken. But my mother was a black woman in a low-income neighborhood. So the cashier called security instead of calling the manager. They searched her purse in front of everyone. They found nothing. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just silence. Lily's hand covers her mouth. I decided that day, Aaliyah continues, that I would never be silent when I saw someone being treated as less than human. Not because I think I'm a hero, but because I remember what it felt like to be invisible. And I will not let that feeling win. Lily nods, unable to speak. Aaliyah touches her arm gently. Call that number. Let them help you. You deserve protection. You deserve justice. And you deserve to finish law school without this hanging over your head. Thank you, Lily whispers. Aaliyah returns to Malcolm. This time, when he offers his hand, she takes it. They leave LaCiel together, walking past the other diners who watch them go. Some will later describe the moment as powerful. Others will call it uncomfortable. A few will say they felt ashamed for not speaking up themselves. But Aaliyah and Malcolm do not hear any of it. They step into the New York night, where the city hums with its endless noise. Somewhere across town, Preston Hale sits in an interrogation room, realizing that wealth cannot buy back a moment of cruelty captured on camera. Somewhere in Queens, Lily Newen calls Malcolm's attorney and begins the long process of refusing to be silenced. And somewhere in a high-rise office overlooking Central Park, a reporter named Chloe Park receives an anonymous email with a single line in the subject header. It reads, "Check the money behind the violence. The game has only just begun." Detective Brooks sits across from Preston Hale in interview room 3 at the 19th precinct. The walls are institutional beige. A camera blinks red in the corner. Preston's lawyer, a man named Richard Groves, who wears cufflinks worth more than most people's cars, sits beside his client with an expression of practiced boredom. "My client has no comment," Groves says before Brooks can ask the first question. Brooks leans back in his chair. "That's fine. But I need to inform Mr. Hale that we have video footage from 4 different angles, 7 witness statements, and a victim who is willing to testify. His silence won't make those things disappear." Groves taps his pen on the table. "Are you charging my client?" "Not tonight. But the DA will review this first thing tomorrow morning. Assault in the 3rd degree, harassment, possible hate crime enhancement, depending on what we find in the full interviews." Preston shifts in his seat. "Hate crime? That's insane." "I didn't." Groves places a hand on Preston's arm. "Don't." But Preston ignores him. "I didn't say anything racist. I was just telling that waitress to do her job. And that woman got in my face. I defended myself." Brooks writes something in his notebook. "You defended yourself by striking a woman who was standing 2 feet away from you with her hands folded? She was aggressive." "How?" She was," Preston falters. "She wouldn't back down. So you hit her because she wouldn't back down from asking you to apologize to a server?" Groves stands. "We're done here. Unless you're charging my client, we're leaving." Brooks closes his notebook. "You're free to go. But Mr. Hale, one piece of advice. Whatever you're planning to do next, think very carefully. The Carters are not the kind of people who go away when you throw money at them." Preston's jaw tightens. "We'll see about that." They leave. Brooks watches them go and pulls out his phone. He texts Malcolm. He's rattled. Expect him to make a move. Malcolm's response comes 30 seconds later. Let him. The next morning, Aaliyah wakes at 6. She has slept for 4 hours. The bruise on her cheek has deepened to a dark purple. She studies it in the bathroom mirror, then covers it with concealer and foundation. Not to hide it, but to control the narrative of her own face. Malcolm is already awake, sitting at the kitchen island with his laptop and a cup of black coffee. He looks up when she enters. "How do you feel?" "Angry," she says. "Clear." He nods. "Good. Anger is useful if you know where to aim it." Aaliyah pours herself coffee and sits beside him. "I want to file the civil suit today. Already drafted. I had our attorneys working on it last night. It names Preston Hale individually and Hale Dominion as co-defendants for creating a culture that enables this behavior. Will it stick? If we can show a pattern, yes. And I think we can." Aaliyah studies his face. "You've been digging." "I've been digging," Malcolm confirms. Hale Dominion has been named in 3 discrimination lawsuits in the last 5 years. All settled out of court with NDAs. But I have people who know how to find things that are supposed to stay hidden. That's not enough. No. But it's a start. He turns his laptop toward her. On the screen is a financial chart showing a web of offshore accounts and shell corporations. This is where it gets interesting. Aaliyah leans closer. "What am I looking at?" Pier 47. It's a waterfront development project Hale Dominion has been pushing for 3 years. The city keeps blocking it because the environmental impact reports don't add up. But the project keeps getting funded through a series of shell companies that trace back to a private equity firm called Apex Holdings. And Apex Holdings is owned by a man named Victor Chen. And Victor Chen is currently under investigation by the SEC for securities fraud. If we can prove that Hale Dominion is laundering money through Pier 47, it's not just a civil case. It's federal. Aaliyah is quiet for a long moment. "You're connecting his behavior last night to something bigger." "I'm saying men like Preston Hale don't learn violence in a vacuum. They learn it from systems that protect them. And those systems leave trails." Aaliyah closes the laptop. "We need to be careful. If we go after Hale Dominion, they will come after us with everything. I know. They will dig into our finances. Our marriage. Our reputations. They will look for anything they can use to discredit me." "I know," Malcolm says again. Which is why we move carefully. We document everything, we stay above reproach. And we don't stop until the truth is loud enough to drown out their lies. Aaliyah takes his hand. I'm not afraid of them. I know you're not. That's why we'll win. By noon, the story has broken. A gossip website called Spotlight Manhattan publishes an article titled Billionaire's Wife Assaulted at Lucille. Witnesses say she started it. The piece is poorly sourced and deliberately inflammatory. It quotes an anonymous diner who claims Aaliyah was drunk and belligerent. It describes Preston as a young entrepreneur defending himself from an aggressive woman. The article spreads across social platforms within hours. The comments section fills with speculation. Some people defend Aaliyah. Others call her a gold digger looking for a payout. A few suggest that Malcolm staged the whole thing for publicity. Chloe Park reads the article at her desk in the offices of the Metro Standard, an independent investigative outlet she has worked for since leaving the Times. She is 34 years old with a reputation for following money trails that other reporters miss. She has been tracking Hale Dominion for 8 months because something about their financing never added up. The anonymous email she received last night said, "Check the money behind the violence." She pulls up the Shell Corporation records Malcolm sent her an hour earlier. He did not say how he obtained them. She did not ask. What matters is that they are real, and they tell a story about power that goes far beyond one man's hand. Chloe picks up her phone and calls a contact at the SEC. I need you to tell me everything you know about Apex Holdings and Victor Chen. The contact hesitates. That's an active investigation. I know. But I think it connects to something much bigger. And if I'm right, the public needs to know before someone buries it. There is a long pause. Then, I'll send you what I can. But you didn't get it from me. Understood. 20 minutes later, Chloe's inbox pings. She opens the files and begins to read. By the time she finishes, she understands exactly what Malcolm Carter was trying to tell her. Preston Hale's violence was not an isolated incident. It was a symptom of a system built to protect people like him from ever facing consequences. And that system was about to collapse. At 2 in the afternoon, Malcolm holds a press conference. He does not do this often. He prefers to let his work speak. But today is different. Today, his wife's face is bruised, and the internet is calling her a liar. He stands at a podium in the lobby of Nova's headquarters, flanked by his attorneys. Cameras flash. Reporters shout questions. Malcolm waits until the room quiets. Yesterday evening, my wife Aaliyah Carter was assaulted at Lucille Restaurant after intervening to stop the verbal abuse of a staff member. The man who struck her is Preston Hale. This is not in dispute. It was witnessed by multiple people and captured on security footage. The police have the evidence. The district attorney is reviewing charges. He pauses, letting the words settle. I am not here to ask for sympathy. I am here to make something very clear. My wife is not a victim seeking a settlement. She is a woman who believes in accountability. And so do I. That is why I am announcing the creation of the Shield the Service Fund, a $10 million initiative to provide legal support and workplace protections for service workers who experience harassment or assault on the job. A reporter raises her hand. Mr. Carter, some are saying your wife provoked the attack. How do you respond? Malcolm's expression does not change. I respond by pointing to the footage, the witness statements, and the fact that the only person who used violence was Preston Hale. Asking someone to be respectful is not provocation. It is basic human decency. Another reporter, are you planning to sue Hale Dominion? That is a decision my wife will make. But I will say this. If we find that Hale Dominion has a pattern of enabling or covering up abusive behavior, we will pursue every legal avenue available. Do you have evidence of a pattern? Malcolm smiles slightly. I have evidence of many things. And in time, all of it will be made public. He steps away from the podium. The press conference ends. But the message is clear. Malcolm Carter is not interested in making this go away. He is interested in making it matter. Preston watches the press conference from his father's office on the 53rd floor of Hale Tower. Gregory Hale sits behind a mahogany desk, his fingers steepled, his face carved from granite. He is 71 years old, and has spent 5 decades building an empire that his son is now threatening to destroy. You hit her, Gregory says. His voice is flat. She was. I don't care what she was. You hit her in public. On camera. And now Malcolm Carter is turning it into a crusade. Preston's hands clench. He's grandstanding. This will blow over. Gregory laughs. It is not a pleasant sound. You think this blows over? Carter just pledged $10 million to protect people like the girl you insulted. He just told the world that he is coming for us. And you think it blows over? What do you want me to do? I want you to shut up and let me fix this. I don't need you to. Gregory slams his hand on the desk. Yes. You do. Because you have made this personal, and personal is the one thing we cannot afford. Do you understand what Malcolm Carter is capable of? He built a financial empire from nothing. He has connections in every major institution in this country. And now you have given him a reason to aim all of that power at us. Preston swallows hard. So what's the plan? Gregory leans back in his chair. The plan is we settle. Quietly. We offer the wife whatever she wants. Money. An apology. Whatever it takes to make this disappear. And if she doesn't take it, then we destroy her credibility before she destroys ours. Preston nods slowly. He does not ask how. He already knows. His father did not build Hale Dominion by playing fair. He built it by knowing where to apply pressure, how to buy silence, and when to deploy the kind of force that leaves no fingerprints. But what neither of them understands yet is that Aaliyah Carter has already prepared for this. She has spent the last 10 years building a reputation that cannot be bought or broken, and she has married a man who knows how to turn defense into offense. That evening, Aaliyah sits in the offices of Carter Impact Lab, surrounded by her team. There are 8 people in the room, all of them experts in policy, communications, and grassroots organizing. They have been with her since the beginning. They know what she is capable of. We need to control the narrative, says Jenna Morse, the communications director. The gossip sites are killing us. Half the internet thinks you started the fight. Aaliyah nods. Then we don't fight gossip with gossip. We fight it with documentation. I want every piece of evidence compiled into a single file. Witness statements. Video footage. Police reports. Medical records. And I want it released to every major outlet simultaneously. That's aggressive, Jenna says. Good. I'm tired of being defensive. Aaliyah's phone buzzes. It is a text from Lily Nguyen. They're offering me money to stay quiet. What do I do? Aaliyah types back immediately. Do not take it. Call Malcolm's attorney. Now. She looks up at her team. They're already trying to buy silence. Which means they're scared. And scared people make mistakes. Jenna grins. So we wait for the mistake. No, Aaliyah says. We force it. She stands and walks to the window. Below, the city glitters with 10,000 lights. Somewhere in that sprawl, Preston Hale is learning what it means to be seen not as powerful, but as accountable. And Aaliyah knows, with a certainty that runs deeper than anger, that this is only the beginning. Because justice is not a moment. It is a process. And she has all the time in the world. The next morning, Hale Dominion's public relations team deploys their counterstrike. A press release lands in inboxes across the city at 8 a.m. sharp. The headline reads, Preston Hale expresses regret for misunderstanding, questions motivations. Behind public smear campaign. The statement is carefully worded. It acknowledges that an altercation occurred but frames it as a mutual escalation. It suggests that Aaliyah Carter may have had ulterior motives for confronting Preston. It implies, without stating directly, that the Carters are using the incident to gain publicity for their charitable fund. By 9 a.m., 3 major news outlets have picked up the story. By 10, a dozen talking heads are debating it on morning television. The narrative splinters. Some defend Aaliyah, others question why a wealthy woman needs legal protection. A few suggest that both sides are equally to blame. Malcolm watches the coverage from his office. His expression is unreadable. His assistant knocks on the door. Sir, you have a call from Detective Brooks. Malcolm picks up. Daniel, we have a problem. Hale's attorneys are claiming the video footage is inconclusive. They're saying it doesn't show who initiated physical contact. That's a lie. I know it's a lie. But they have an expert witness who's willing to testify that the angles are ambiguous. And they're pushing to get the case dismissed before it reaches trial. Malcolm is quiet for 3 seconds. Then, when can you get me the raw footage? I can't officially give it to you. Chain of evidence. Unofficially? Brooks sighs. I'll have Maria send it to your encrypted server. But if anyone asks, you didn't get it from me. Understood. Thank you, Daniel. Malcolm hangs up and calls his head of cybersecurity. I need you to analyze video files. I need metadata, timestamp verification, and frame-by-frame analysis. I need it done in 6 hours. What are we looking for? Proof that the footage is authentic. And evidence that someone tried to alter it. By 3 p.m., Malcolm has his answer. The original video files from Lucille are intact. But someone accessed the restaurant's server at 2:30 a.m. on the night of the incident and copied all the files. The IP address traces back to a cybersecurity firm called SecureWatch Solutions. And SecureWatch Solutions is a subsidiary of a company called Archon Consulting. Archon Consulting's biggest client is Hail Dominion. Malcolm forwards the information to Chloe Park with a single-line note. They're not just lying, they're creating evidence. Chloe reads the report twice. Then she picks up her phone and calls her editor. I need front page for tomorrow. I have proof that Hail Dominion is tampering with evidence in an assault case. Her editor whistles. Can you back it up? Every word. Then write it. Chloe writes for 6 hours straight. The article she produces is titled, The Hail Dominion Playbook. How One Family Uses Money, Power, and Digital Manipulation to Escape Accountability. It details the IP address, the subsidiary connections, and the pattern of settlements in previous lawsuits. It includes interviews with 3 former Hail employees who describe a culture where complaints are buried and whistleblowers are silenced. The article goes live at midnight. By dawn, it has been shared 40,000 times. By noon, it is the lead story on every major news website. By the afternoon, the Securities and Exchange Commission announces that it is opening a formal investigation into Hail Dominion's financial practices. Gregory Hale reads the article in his office and throws his coffee mug across the room. It shatters against the wall. His assistant does not flinch. She has worked for him for 23 years. She has seen worse. Get me Preston, Gregory says. Now. Preston arrives within 15 minutes. His face is pale. His hands shake. Did you authorize SecureWatch to access that footage? Gregory demands. I know. I told Richard to handle it. I didn't know. You didn't know. You didn't know that tampering with evidence is a federal crime? You didn't know that every move we make is being watched by a man who has more resources and more motivation than anyone we have ever fought? Preston's jaw tightens. What do you want me to say? I want you to say nothing. To no one. Ever again. Gregory stands and crosses to the window. We are going to settle this. Today. I am going to call Malcolm Carter and offer him whatever he wants. And you are going to sign every piece of paper I put in front of you without argument. Do you understand? I'm not apologizing to her. Gregory turns slowly. Yes. You are. Because if you don't, I will cut you off. Completely. No trust fund. No inheritance. No job. You will have nothing but your own name, and that name will be worthless. So yes, Preston. You will apologize. And you will mean it. Preston stares at his father. For the first time in his life, he sees something in Gregory's eyes that terrifies him more than Malcolm Carter's cold precision. He sees contempt. Fine, Preston whispers. Good, now get out. Malcolm receives the call at 4 p.m. It is not Gregory Hale on the line, but his chief counsel, a woman named Patricia Winters, who has negotiated more settlements than most lawyers see in a lifetime. Mr. Carter, I am calling on behalf of Hail Dominion to propose a resolution. Malcolm puts the call on speaker so Aaliyah can hear. She sits across from him in his office, her hands folded in her lap. I'm listening, Malcolm says. We would like to offer a formal apology from Preston Hale, delivered publicly. We will also provide financial compensation in the amount of $5 million to Mrs. Carter, along with an additional $5 million to be donated to a charity of her choice. In exchange, we ask that all criminal and civil proceedings be dropped. Aaliyah shakes her head. Malcolm speaks. Mrs. Carter declines. There is a pause on the line. May I ask why? Because money is not the point, Aaliyah says, leaning toward the speaker. Accountability is. Mrs. Carter, I assure you that Mr. Hale takes full responsibility. Does he? Aaliyah interrupts. Because from where I'm sitting, what I see is a family trying to pay their way out of consequences. Again, Patricia's voice remains professional. What would you consider acceptable terms? Aaliyah looks at Malcolm. He nods. Here are my conditions, Aaliyah says. 1. Preston Hale issues a public apology that acknowledges not just what he did to me, but what he said to Lily Nguyen. 2. Hail Dominion establishes a 10-year scholarship fund for service workers pursuing higher education, with a minimum endowment of $20 million. 3. Hail Dominion implements mandatory anti-harassment training for all employees and publishes annual transparency reports on workplace complaints. 4. All materials related to the Pier 47 development are turned over to federal investigators. And 5. Preston Hale agrees to 100 hours of community service at a nonprofit serving the communities he disparaged. The silence on the line stretches for 10 seconds. That is extensive, Patricia finally says. That is accountability, Aaliyah replies. Take it or leave it. I will need to consult with my clients. You have until tomorrow at noon. After that, we proceed with every legal action available to us, and we release all documentation to the press. Patricia exhales slowly. I will be in touch. The call ends. Aaliyah sits back in her chair. Malcolm watches her with something that might be pride or might be wonder or might be both. You didn't ask for a dime, he says. I don't need their money, I need them to change. They might not take the deal. Then we destroy them properly. Malcolm smiles. Have I mentioned lately that you're terrifying? Not since yesterday. He reaches across the desk and takes her hand. We could still walk away. Take the money. Let someone else fight this battle. Aaliyah squeezes his fingers. When have you ever known me to walk away? Never. Which is why I married you. That night, Aaliyah cannot sleep. She lies in bed staring at the ceiling while Malcolm's breathing settles into the steady rhythm of rest. She thinks about her mother standing in that grocery store, holding her purse open while a security guard rifled through her belongings. She thinks about Lily's face when Preston called her incompetent. She thinks about all the small violences that accumulate over a lifetime, each one bearable until they become unbearable. She gets up and walks to her study. The room is lined with bookshelves filled with volumes on civil rights law, social justice theory, and organizational change. On her desk sits a framed photograph from the day Carter Impact Lab opened its first community center in Baltimore. In the picture, she is surrounded by children, all of them smiling, all of them holding paintbrushes. They had spent the day painting a mural on the center's exterior wall. The mural depicted hands of every color reaching toward a shared sundae. Aaliyah picks up the frame and studies the faces. She remembers one girl, maybe 9 years old, who had asked her, "Why do people think we're not good enough?" Aaliyah had knelt down to meet the girl's eyes. Because some people are taught that power means making others small. But you know what real power is? Real power is lifting others up until everyone can see the sundae. The girl had smiled and gone back to painting. Aaliyah sets the frame down and opens her laptop. She begins to write. Not a legal brief. Not a press statement. Just words. Thoughts. A record of what it feels like to stand in a room full of witnesses and know that even your pain will be questioned, dissected, and dismissed if you do not fight for every inch of your own truth. She writes until dawn breaks over the city, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. When Malcolm finds her, she has filled 11 pages. Come to bed, he says gently. In a minute, he reads over her shoulder. Is this for the case? No. This is for me. He kisses the top of her head. Then take your time. At 11:45 the next morning, Patricia Winters calls. Malcolm and Aaliyah sit in the conference room at Nova's headquarters, flanked by 3 attorneys and a paralegal. We accept your terms, Patricia says. All of them. Mr. Hale will issue the apology this evening. The scholarship fund will be established within 30 days. The training protocols will begin immediately. And we will cooperate fully with the federal investigation into Pier 47. Aaliyah closes her eyes for just a moment. When she opens them, her voice is steady. I want it in writing. Every condition. Signed by Gregory Hale personally. You'll have it within the hour. And Preston Hale will deliver the apology in person. No video statement. No prepared remarks read by a publicist. Him. Standing in front of cameras. Looking at the people he hurt. There is a long pause. He has agreed to those terms. Then we have a deal. The documents arrive at 12:30. Malcolm's attorneys review every line, every clause, every condition. By 2 p.m., both parties have signed. By 3 p.m., the press has been notified. By 5 p.m., cameras are set up in the lobby of Hale Tower. Preston Hale stands at a podium. He wears a gray suit and a pale blue tie. His face is drawn. His father stands 10 feet behind him, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Aaliyah and Malcolm watch from the back of the room. Lily Nguyen stands beside them. She had asked to be here. Aaliyah had said yes. Preston clears his throat. His hands grip the podium. 3 days ago, I behaved in a manner that was unacceptable, inexcusable, and deeply harmful. I verbally abused Lily Nguyen, a server at Lucille restaurant, using language that was demeaning and cruel. When Aaliyah Carter intervened and asked me to apologize, I responded with violence. I struck her. I did this because I was embarrassed, angry, and accustomed to a world where my actions carried no consequences. He pauses. His voice is steady but not smooth. He is reading from notes, but he is not hiding behind them. I was raised in privilege. I was taught that wealth and power were synonymous with worth. I was wrong. My behavior reflected a belief that some people matter less than others. That belief is poison. It poisoned my character, my judgment, and my humanity. And it led me to hurt two women who deserved only respect. Preston looks directly at the camera. To Lillian Wynne. I am sorry. You were doing your job with professionalism and grace. And I treated you as if your dignity was negotiable. It is not. To Aaliyah Carter, I am sorry. You stood up for someone who could not defend herself, and I punished you for it. You showed courage. I showed cowardice. He glances down at his notes, then back up. I cannot undo what I did. But I can commit to doing better. I have agreed to complete 100 hours of community service. I have agreed to work with organizations that support the people I have harmed. And I have agreed to spend the rest of my life proving that this apology is not just words, but a genuine change in who I choose to be. He steps back from the podium. No one applauds. The room is silent. Aaliyah steps forward. She did not plan to speak. But something pulls her toward the microphone. She stands where Preston stood moments before. Thank you for that apology, she says. I accept it. Not because I have forgotten, but because I believe in the possibility of change. I believe that accountability is not about destruction. It is about reconstruction. It is about building systems where moments like these cannot happen without consequence. And where the voices of people like Lily are heard before the violence occurs. She looks at Lily, who stands with tears streaming down her face. This was never just about me, Aaliyah continues. It was about every service worker who has been demeaned. Every woman who has been told to be quiet. Every person who has been made to feel invisible. I hope that what happened here this week sends a message. You are not invisible. Your dignity is not negotiable. And when you speak up, there are people who will stand with you. She steps away from the podium. Malcolm meets her halfway. They walk out together, followed by Lily. The cameras follow them until they disappear through the glass doors. Outside, the autumn air is crisp. Lily stops on the sidewalk and turns to Aaliyah. I don't know how to thank you, Lily says. You don't need to thank me. You need to keep living your life. Finish school. Become the lawyer you're meant to be. And then make sure the next person who needs help has someone like you standing beside them. Lily nods. I will. I promise. She walks away, disappearing into the flow of pedestrians. Malcolm and Aaliyah stand together, watching the city move around them. How do you feel? Malcolm asks. Aaliyah considers the question. Tired. Relieved. And oddly hopeful. Hopeful? He might actually change. Or he might not. But for the first time, he was forced to see himself clearly. And maybe that's enough to start. Malcolm takes her hand. Come on. Let's go home. They walk toward the parking garage. Behind them, inside Hale Tower, Gregory Hale watches his son sit in a conference room with his head in his hands. Gregory feels no satisfaction. Only the cold recognition that legacy is a fragile thing, built over decades and destroyed in moments. He has spent 50 years building an empire. His son nearly destroyed it in a single night. And the only reason it still stands is because a woman named Aaliyah Carter chose accountability over annihilation. Gregory makes a decision in that moment. He calls his board of directors and announces his retirement. He names a new CEO, a woman with 30 years of experience in ethical real estate development. He dissolves the offshore accounts tied to Pier 47 and turns over all documentation to federal investigators. And he calls Malcolm Carter personally to say 5 words. You were right about everything. Malcolm listens. He does not gloat. He simply says, thank you for doing the right thing. And then he hangs up. 3 weeks later, the Shield the Service Fund officially launches. The first grants go to 12 workers across the country who have experienced harassment or assault on the job. Each receives legal support, counseling services, and financial assistance to cover lost wages while pursuing justice. Lily Nguyen is among the first recipients. She uses the grant to enroll in night classes at Columbia Law School. She will graduate in 4 years with honors. She will go on to work for a nonprofit that provides legal aid to low-wage workers. And she will spend her career making sure that no one has to stand alone the way she did. Chloe Park publishes a follow-up investigation 6 weeks after the apology. The article is titled What Happens After the Apology? Measuring Real Change at Hale Dominion. It tracks the implementation of the scholarship fund, the transparency reports, and the cultural shifts within the company. The article is both critical and fair. It acknowledges progress while demanding continued vigilance. It becomes required reading in business ethics courses across the country. Preston Hale completes his community service at a homeless shelter in the Bronx. He shows up every Saturday for 18 months. At first, he is resentful. He feels humiliated. He tells himself he is a victim of cancel culture, of political correctness run amok. But slowly, week by week, something shifts. He begins to listen to the stories of the people he serves. He hears about systemic injustice, about how poverty is not a moral failure but a structural trap, about how the world he has always taken for granted is built on the backs of people he never bothered to see. One Saturday, an older man named Jerome asks Preston why he is there. Preston tells him the truth. He tells him about the slap, the lawsuit, the fall from grace. Jerome listens without judgment. Then he says, "You know what the difference is between a good man and a bad man who did a good thing? Time. You keep showing up, keep doing the work, and eventually you become who you're pretending to be." Preston thinks about that for a long time. Aaliyah returns to work at Carter Impact Lab. The bruise on her cheek fades over 2 weeks. The memory does not. But she does not carry it as trauma. She carries it as proof that standing up costs something, and that the cost is always worth paying. She and Malcolm host a dinner at their home for everyone involved in the case. Detective Brooks comes, along with Maria Torres, Chloe Park, and Lily Nguyen. They eat, they laugh, they tell stories. No one mentions Preston Hale. His name does not belong in this room. This is a space for the people who chose courage over comfort. And they have earned their peace. Near the end of the evening, Lily raises her glass. "I want to propose a toast. To Aaliyah, who taught me that silence is not safety. And to everyone here who refused to look away." They drink. And in that moment, surrounded by people who understand that justice is not a destination but a practice, Aaliyah feels something she has not felt in weeks. She feels whole. Later, after everyone has gone home, Aaliyah and Malcolm sit on their balcony overlooking the city. The night is cool. The lights below shimmer like scattered stars. "Do you think he'll actually change?" Aaliyah asks. "Preston? I don't know. Change is hard. It requires humility, and humility is something rich men are rarely taught. But it's possible. Anything is possible. That's what makes this work worth doing." Aaliyah leans her head on Malcolm's shoulder. "I keep thinking about that little girl from Baltimore. The one who asked me why people think she's not good enough. What about her? I think I finally have an answer. People think she's not good enough because they've built a world where her value is measured by what she can give them, not by who she is. But every time someone stands up and says that's not acceptable, the world gets a little bit smaller for the people who profit from that lie. And a little bit bigger for people like her." Malcolm kisses her forehead. "You're going to change the world, you know that. We're going to change the world. Together." They sit in comfortable silence as the city breathes around them. Somewhere out there, Preston Hale is learning what accountability feels like. Somewhere, Gregory Hale is rebuilding a legacy on more honest foundations. Somewhere, Lily Nguyen is studying case law and dreaming of the courtroom battles she will one day win. And somewhere, a little girl is painting a mural of hands reaching toward the sun, believing that the world can be better than it is. Because that is the truth that violence tries to destroy and dignity fights to preserve. The world can be better. Not perfect. Not easy. But better. One choice at a time. One voice at a time. One person standing up and saying this is not acceptable at a time. And in the end, that is the only revolution that matters. Not the loud one. Not the violent one. But the steady, relentless, unglamorous work of refusing to look away when someone needs you to see them. Of refusing to be silent when someone needs you to speak. Of refusing to accept that cruelty is the price of power. Aaliyah Carter learned that lesson at 9 years old, watching her mother stand humiliated in a grocery store. Malcolm Carter learned it building a business from nothing, proving that success does not require stepping on others. And Preston Hale is learning it now, slowly, painfully, through the consequences of his own actions. The story does not end with perfect redemption. It ends with possibility. With the understanding that accountability is not about punishment, but about creating the conditions for growth. With the knowledge that justice is not a moment of catharsis, but 1,000 small decisions to choose compassion over convenience, truth over comfort, and dignity over dominance. 3 months after the settlement, Aaliyah gives a speech at a conference on workplace safety. She does not tell the story of the slap. She does not need to. Everyone knows it. Instead, she talks about what came after. She talks about the scholarship fund that has already changed 12 lives. She talks about the transparency reports that are forcing corporations to face their own failures. She talks about the letters she receives every week from service workers who say they feel seen for the first time. "We live in a culture that worships power," she says. But power without accountability is just another word for violence. Real power is not the ability to hurt without consequence. Real power is the ability to protect, to uplift, to create space for others to thrive. And that kind of power is available to every single one of us, regardless of wealth or status or privilege. It just requires us to make a choice. Will we look away? Or will we stand up? The audience rises in applause. But Aaliyah is not looking at them. She is looking at the back of the room, where a young woman in a server's uniform stands against the wall, tears streaming down her face. The woman mouths 2 words. "Thank you." Aaliyah nods. And in that moment, she knows that everything, the slap, the lawsuit, the media circus, the sleepless nights, was worth it. Because that young woman now knows she is not alone. And that knowledge, more than any settlement or apology, is the victory that matters. The world does not change because one rich man learns to behave. It changes because one woman refuses to be silent, and in her refusal, gives permission to 1,000 others to speak. It changes because justice is not something you wait for, but something you build, brick by brick, choice by choice, voice by voice. And it changes because people like Aaliyah Carter understand that the opposite of violence is not peace. It is accountability. And accountability, practiced with patience and precision, is the only force powerful enough to transform both perpetrators and systems. So, when the cameras finally turn off, and the headlines fade, and the world moves on to its next crisis, Aaliyah goes back to work. She opens more community centers. She funds more scholarships. She mentors more young women who are learning to use their voices as weapons of love rather than silence. And she does it all with the quiet certainty that comes from knowing she has already won the only battle that matters. The battle to remain human in a world that profits from dehumanization. Malcolm stands beside her through all of it, not as her savior, but as her partner. He does not fight her battles. He amplifies her voice. He does not protect her from the world. He helps her reshape it. And together, they build something that no amount of money can buy, and no amount of violence can destroy. A life defined not by what they have, but by who they choose to be. Preston Hale finishes his community service. He does not become a saint. He does not dedicate his life to charity. But he does something almost as important. He becomes quiet. He stops demanding to be seen, and starts learning to see others. It is a small change. But small changes, accumulated over time, are how human beings become worthy of the second chances they are given. Years later, a journalist will ask Aaliyah if she regrets not taking the money. If she regrets choosing accountability over a quick settlement. Aaliyah will smile and say, "I never wanted their money. I wanted their attention. I wanted them to stop long enough to see what they had become." And for a moment, they did. That moment was worth everything, because in the end, this is not a story about revenge. It is a story about repair. About the hard, slow work of building a world where dignity is not a privilege but a right. Where violence is not inevitable but unacceptable. Where power is not measured by who you can hurt, but by how many people you help stand. And it is a story about a woman in an emerald dress who refused to look away when someone needed her. Who accepted a slap across the face and turned it into a movement. Who understood that the most powerful word in the English language is not revenge or retribution, but simply this. No, no, you will not hurt her without consequence. No, you will not silence us. No, you will not build your empire on our backs and our silence and our pain. No. And in that refusal, in that simple, powerful, unyielding no, everything changes. The city lights shimmer. The world keeps turning. And somewhere, a little girl picks up a paintbrush and adds another hand to the mural, reaching toward a sun she believes, with absolute certainty, she will one day touch.